The first one today is Brad McGinity, and he hails from Raleigh-Durham. Brad is the CRO of 15.5 and is a double Tarheel, so there's a lot of Dookies in the room too. So Brad's CRO of 15.5, he has helped take them from an inbound and expansion to outbound with the help of a great team. And prior to 15.5, he was the co-founder of Windsor Circle, which is predictive analytics in marketing software. And then before then, he was one of the top sales reps at Bronto. And we all know Bronto is one of the most successful stories from the Raleigh-Durham area that just got acquired by NetSuite. And he's got 3 daughters. We have that in common. I only have 1, but he's got 3, so it's a lot of weddings. But let's give Brad a round of applause. He's going to be talking on the topics of sales today, and this is a great presentation. So Brad, come on up.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for having me. All right, that is on and live. 3 daughters. You guys are going to get to see one of them here in a moment. She's a sales rep who thinks she has a qualified deal. It'll make sense in a moment. Excited to be with you all. This is a great event, great venue. We've got a couple of spaces like this in the Raleigh-Durham area with HQ Raleigh and the American Underground. And so Windsor Circle was actually born out of the American Underground and kind of graduated out of there into our own space. So super excited to be in a place like the Atlanta Tech Village and be a small contributor into the great work that you guys are doing here. All right, I'm not going to get into a sales pitch of 15.5, despite the fact that it looks like it. Okay, so this is my 4-year-old daughter. She turns 4 next month, and she's at rookie sports at the YMCA. This is also your sales reps and all of their deals and their sales managers right now. Oh, that didn't work the way it was supposed to. My favorite is that my daughter is running down there, getting whipped by the noodles, and she doesn't even have a soccer ball. Like she's totally lost the ball. So I think the ball is in the deal. The kids are the sales reps. She lost her soccer ball. It's not even a qualified deal, but she's still chasing it like there's a real deal there. But there's no deal. She just doesn't know it because she's 4 and she's cute. So we are going to try to create today a little bit of structure and a little bit of systemization to your sales pipeline and your forecasting and how you think about selling. So I did a little bit of analysis before coming in here and some skimming of LinkedIn profiles and things like this. I have a sense that most of you are executives or founders in tech companies less than 20 people. So by show of hands, who does that fit? Less than 20 people, executive or founder? Okay. And how many of you are doing some founder-led selling, or maybe you've got a couple sales reps under you and you're kind of acting as a sales manager, but really don't know a whole lot about selling? Okay, so a few hands there. All right, so today we are going to talk. Okay, we're going to talk about 2 main things. So the first is opportunity stages. The most important part of our opportunity stages conversation is going to come around to this idea of verifiable outcomes. Everybody's got stages, and your reps are moving deals through stages, but in a way that is oftentimes very inconsistent. Everybody's thinking about these stages and the terminology in different ways, and so you could have 2 deals that are actually in the same stage in reality, but they're marked as different stages inside of Salesforce. And then we're going to talk about this concept called MEDDPICC. It's an acronym that puts some framework around something that your best reps are intuitively doing, and they might not know that they're doing it. And so it ensures really high deal health and this ability to score our pipeline as well. So first we'll talk opportunity stages. So pretty standard SaaS sales opportunity stages. We qualify people, we do a discovery process to interview them, we show them a demo of our software. We're going to go into some kind of solution fit, proposal stage, then we're going to negotiate, we have a verbal agreement, and then we have a 1 deal. At 15.5, we have a little bit of a wrinkle on that for the engagement stage and the resolving objection stage. We'll talk about those in a moment, and they'll make more sense. So first, qualification. All we're simply trying to do here is figure out, is this deal worth my time? I've got this inbound lead or I've got this outbound customer that I'm talking to, and I need to figure out if they are actually qualified. The most common methodology for this is BANT, budget, authority, need, and time frame. Oh, sorry, one quick thing. I did really ugly slides with a lot of text on them. You guys are gonna get a copy of these. We're gonna move a little bit fast here, so don't put a lot of stress on yourself to write down all the words, because you'll get a copy that you can hopefully follow as a bit of an instruction manual. So I like ugly slides that are tactical as opposed to really pretty slides that you can't do anything with. All right, so at 15.5, we use SHITE, seats, high growth in 90 days, technical fit, and there's some kind of executive sponsor. If it ain't SHITE, it ain't shit at 15.5. Okay, so we have verifiable outcomes. This is really important. You need to be able to document that somebody has actually met your criteria, whether it's BANT or Puma or SHITE or anything else. And you should be able to have a third party who's looking at that. If you have an SDR in place as well and they're qualifying leads for an account executive, the account executive should be corroborating this. So then we move into discovery. In discovery, you are doing an interview with your customer to identify how you can help them. What is your value proposition for this specific customer? There's a lot of great techniques and frameworks for how you do the interview. Spin selling is an incredibly popular one. I like a variation from Dale Carnegie. As is, should be, pain, barriers, payout. What are you doing today? What do you want to be doing? What's the problem with what you're doing today? What's prevented you from doing something different? If you were to fix this, what's the good thing that happens for you? What's the payoff from doing this? The verifiable outcome, you can't move from discovery into the demo stage in your forecast, in your pipeline, until you have a confirmed demo on the calendar. Calendar request is sent, your prospect has hit accept, now you can move it into the demo stage. In the demo stage, we're going to show our vision for how we're going to help solve this customer's problem. Here's what we all do during demos is we show our product. Well, it's really only one of the 4 things that you should be doing. When you are going through this demo stage, you need to be showing them your product, but you also need to be reinforcing the pain, showing them your product, showing them the payoff from solving this problem or using your solution. And then this is a really critical one that we so often miss. They need to see a path to making this thing become reality. So what happens is they understand the problem, they have some vision for how you're going to get them to utopia, but they don't understand this part in the middle. And when we don't understand this part in the middle, we just walk away because it's easier to do nothing as buyers than it is to move forward with something when we have this big unknown in between. So get them talking to your customer success managers if you have that function. Help them to understand what training is going to look like. Is there an implementation plan? What does support look like? So that they can have a more clear vision of their journey as you and your business takes them from here with problem to here with solution. So we oftentimes skip this path stage, and it's really important to do that in this demo stage. Your verifiable outcome, you can't move from demo into the next stage until you've done X. Okay, now here's where it gets a little bit interesting because we have this engagement stage and this idea of resolving objections. So if we have another scheduled call, we're most likely moving into the engagement stage. In the engagement stage, we are still proactively selling. We're going to talk about this stage in more detail in a quick moment here. So we can either move into the engagement stage. If we've moved into this place where we're now resolving objections, they can list out their concerns and we can start to address these concerns. We would skip the engagement stage and move directly into the stage that we call resolving objections. So important that you've got a scheduled call accepted by the customer before you can move it out of the demo stage. Okay, the engagement stage. It's a big part of our sales. It also sucks. We hate the engagement stage. It's just reality. The reason it's reality is that it's pretty easy to get somebody into a demo. They've got some curiosity around what you do. They have some problems and they think you might be able to solve it and they want to see if they can really do it. So it's really easy to get them into a demo. So the first few stages here of like, hey, let me do some qualification, let's do some interviewing, let me show you our product. That part's really easy. Now it's really hard to get your customer from here into the place where they've said, I'm actually going to pay you money to solve this problem over here with a closed won opportunity. So after our demo, oftentimes the customer says, hey, this is really interesting. I'd like to learn more. But let us go back as a team and we'll just debrief and we'll get back in touch with you. So debrief and get back in touch with you means I don't know enough yet to really be able to move forward with anything concrete. And so as a sales rep, I am still selling. I'm just not selling by showing them another demo. I'm selling by writing up a proposal, giving them a chance to talk to a customer success manager, going through an ROI calculator. So one takeaway here is just sit down with your team and just document a bunch of post-demo strategies. What are things that we can do to keep our prospect engaged so that they don't go dark on us? Because everybody disappears here in this stage. Now the entire point of the engagement stage, and really the entire point of the sales process, is to get to what I call the list. All right, so we're going to talk about the list here in a second. What's that? Okay, so if we haven't heard from our customer in 2 weeks, kill the deal. You can always revive the deal. It's easy to go into Salesforce and go from close lost back into engagement, or close lost into resolving objections. But don't leave a deal in your pipeline when you haven't heard from this person in 2 weeks. And we have reps that are doing this all the time. Might be my daughter. She's still running down the field. She thinks she's got a deal. She's calling this person. She's sending emails. She's doing all this stuff. And there's no soccer ball anymore, right? So kill the deal. Your whole goal here is to identify what their objections are. So we have this idea of resolving objections in what I call the list. Okay, so the only reason that people haven't bought your stuff yet is because they have concerns. That's okay. Everybody has concerns. If you can resolve all of their concerns, the logical conclusion is that they should purchase. If you can't resolve all of their concerns, they're not going to purchase. So a sales process is a systematic removal of objections. When you're doing a demo, all you're doing is proactively resolving a bunch of objections that they probably have. Is this thing easy to use? Is it going to solve the problem that I have? Can I do it on a mobile app, right? You talk about all those things in a demo, and you don't think of this as like I'm resolving objections. But really, that's what you're doing. These people have a lot of concerns, and you're just resolving them. In the resolving objection stage, we're going to do a Q&A in a minute. In the resolving objection stage, we now have a list from our customer. What are your biggest concerns about 15.5? That if resolved, you'd feel comfortable moving forward with 15.5. And now this is a checklist that you and your customer can work collaboratively to solve. You will not be able to resolve all the objections and all their concerns. Some of them are not inside of your control. But the goal here is that you're working collaboratively with your customer to resolve these issues with the commitment that if these things were resolved, they would feel comfortable signing up. So in resolving objections, we're working through this list together with our customer, and we're trying to resolve all of them except for one, which is price. And I throw legal and payment terms in there, but usually it's price. So when we've resolved everything except for price, and they've committed to some time frame for making a final decision, we can now move out of resolving objections and into negotiation. The reason I separate out price is because you have control now. In resolving objections, you don't have control over all of the concerns and all of the issues. Some of them might be some project that you can't change. It's just inside of their business. When it's about price, you might not want to agree to their price, but you can. You might not want to agree to their legal terms, but you can. You might not want to agree to their payment terms, but you can. So at the end of the month, at the end of the deal, or the end of the quarter, the end of the year, if you want to, you can get that deal signed by giving them the things that they're asking for, which is why we separate out this one from resolving objections. So one of the big things for my reps is that they'll have deals that are in the negotiation stage, but there's more concerns than just price. And so we're going back and we're saying, okay, well, what are all their concerns? Oh, it's not just price. Well, you need to move it back into resolving objections. Let's resolve those other issues, and then we can come back to the price conversation. Once we have done this, we have a verbal. We're going to send over an order form, try to get it signed as quickly as possible, and then that'll move us into the closed won stage. Really quick note here on the closed won stage. Your account executive thinks their job is done. I've got a signed order form, boss. Like, what else could you want from me? Well, I want data, so I really need some good data entry here so that I can understand how we won this deal and better understand our customers. And then I need a really clean handoff over to customer success or support or implementations or whatever that group is. The sales rep's job isn't done until they've made a really good handoff so that this customer is actually going to be successful. Their job is not to get a closed won deal. Their job is to sign a happy, successful customer. All right, so these are your opportunity stages. The verifiable outcome is really important so that all of your reps aren't moving their deal forward until they have achieved that very specific thing that has to get done, which is listed there for each stage. All right, so now we move to MEDDPICC. Anybody ever heard of MEDDPICC or MEDDPICC before? Couple heads? Not really? Okay. It's actually a reasonably new idea for me as well. I've been doing this thing at Windsor Circle called Bulletproofing, and then I learned about MEDDPICC, and it's a nice variation on it, and the world needs another acronym, so we're going to use it today. All right, metrics, economic buyer, decision process, decision criteria, paperwork, identified pain, champion, and competition. Remember, these are going to get emailed to you. You're going to take these and put them into your Salesforce opportunities as custom fields. You're then going to have a spot next to each one of them where you can put in a number, a 0, a 1, or a 2. And then you'll use a formula field in Salesforce to just do the math and just add up the sum of those fields so you can get an idea of deal and opportunity health. All right, so now let's go and talk about each one of these things. You're going through and you're identifying each of these parts of MEDDPICC just as you're doing discovery, as you're doing your demo, as you're in this engagement stage, as you're doing resolving objections, right? It's just part of the dialogue that you need to be having. And part of what MEDDPICC gives you is a way to have this checklist of things that your best reps are intuitively doing anyway, but you don't want to have a gap and forget something. So MEDDPICC helps you to not forget something. All right, so metrics. Here, we're looking to quantify the payoff of our solution. So the first thing is that we have to identify a KPI. Is it about increasing revenue, saving time, improving customer or employee morale, lowering attrition, increasing conversion rates? What are the KPIs? Then we need a number associated with each of them. So in our scoring model, your deal is a 0 on this attribute when we don't even know what the KPIs are that are important to our customer. It's a 1 when we've defined the KPI, but we don't know the number. And then it's a 2 when we've defined the KPI and we know the numbers that are going to go into it. So we're going to have a couple of these slides that I'll show you from Windsor Circle in a couple spots. This is one of them here with our productivity one. So 72% of our customers say that 15.5 has made them more productive. They say it has made them 45% more productive for those who said yes, and overall 32% more productive, right? So the KPI here is productivity. The quantifiable part of it is this 32% more productive, right? And then we talk to the customer about that, and we can quantify it with the customer to move us from a 0 into a 2. Okay, so that's metrics. Economic buyer. You need to know who controls the money. We are oftentimes selling solutions that are unbudgeted, right? Our people didn't come into the year expecting to buy our software or our product. And so we need somebody who can move money around. This is the economic buyer. So we're a 0 when we don't even know who this person is. We're a 1 when we know them, but we've never talked to them. And we're a 2 when we have a relationship. Next is our decision criteria. So what are the technical and the non-technical requirements? We're a 0 when we don't know the requirements. We're a 1 when we know the requirements, but we haven't met them all. And we're a 2 when the customer has confirmed that we have met them all. This is one of those things where our opinion doesn't really matter. It's only their opinion that matters as to whether or not we've met their technical requirements. All right, we're going to do a quick tangent on decision criteria. There's a book called The Challenger Customer, which is the sequel to The Challenger Sale, which many of you have probably heard of. And it talks about a lot of great things. So one of the things that comes up is this idea of how hard is it to make decisions as a group, because it's usually groups of people that are buying software. There's 5.4 people involved in every decision. They have to agree on 3 things as a group of people. What is the problem? They have to agree on what is the solution, and then they have to agree on the supplier to fulfill this solution. The hardest of the 3 for them to do as a group of 5.4 people is identifying the solution. So this is important as it relates to decision criteria, because you're going to ask your customer, do you have decision criteria? And they're going to tell you what the decision criteria is, but there's a good chance that that person's colleagues and the other stakeholders involved in the deal don't agree. So has your buyer as a group actually reached consensus on the solution identification? And oftentimes we as salespeople need to coach our buyer on how to go into their organization and create consensus on what the solution actually is. Otherwise, we're going to have false decision criteria. All right, back to MEDDPICC. Decision process. Who are the people who are involved? How and when are they going to make decisions? So we are at a 0 when we don't know who these stakeholders are. We're at a 1 when we understand the process and the stakeholders. It's about understanding. And we're at a 2 when we know that we can meet the requirements and we've met the stakeholders. We're getting closer to the end. We're in the second half. The paper process. If you are selling an SMB product, you probably don't need to worry about this one. You can just drop down to MEDDPICC and drop the P. If you're doing mid-market and enterprise, you need to know procurement processes with purchase orders and MSAs and legal and security requirements. So we're at a 0 when we don't know what needs to get done. We're at a 1 when we know what needs to be done. And we're at a 2 when we not only know what needs to be done, but we have enough information that we can accurately predict when those things are going to be completed. Identified pain. This is the one that's a little bit tricky because you think the P is going to be the pain, and it's actually the paperwork, and the I is like, what's the I stand for? Identified. If you don't have pain, you don't have a deal, right? If there's no gap between what somebody's doing today and what they want to be doing, you do not have an opportunity. So you first need to make sure that there is actually pain. Then we need to quantify this pain. So we're at a 0 when we don't know what the pain is. We're at a 1 when we know what the pain is, but we haven't yet quantified it. Like, I've got high employee attrition. That's cool. I know the pain, but I haven't yet quantified it. What is that costing your business? So then we're at a 2 when we've uncovered it and we've quantified it. And this is really important. And the customer has agreed that the status quo cannot be maintained. It doesn't mean that they're going to go with you. It just means that they have committed they're going to do something about this problem. At 15.5, here are some of the pain points that we solve for our customers. So we're getting them to agree. Oh, I've got disconnected employees. I've got an annual review process that doesn't work. We've got some metrics behind it. We're able to quantify this for the customer, get them to agree to the numbers, and now we can mark this thing off as a 2. All right, our champion. You guys think you have champions and you don't have champions. Champions are people with power and they have something to gain from the deal. You have a lot of coaches. You have a lot of fans. They don't have power or they don't have something to win, something to gain from this thing. So you need to have both of those things in order to have a real champion. And the champion is somebody who's going to get this thing in front of your stakeholders. So we're at a 0 when we don't have a champion. We're at a 1, we think we have a champion, but we haven't tested it yet. And we're at a 2, when we've actually tested it, they've confirmed and agreed to be a champion, take this thing to the economic buyer. And lastly is competition. So you need to know who the competitors are. You need to know the strengths and weaknesses relative to the competitors. And you need to be able to position your product against those competitors. So we're at a 0, we don't know who they are. We're at a 1, and we think we know who they are. And we're at a 2, we're at a 2, and we've actually been told who they are. All right, so here's some summary stuff for you. At the opportunity side, this is again important because it creates some common vocabulary across your sales team. It means that when a deal is forecasted into a certain stage, that actually has real meaning because people are using the stages in a consistent way. And we've got this idea of verifiable outcomes, which is so critical to having good forecasting and a clean pipeline. And then on the MEDDPICC side, a lot of this is just making sure you don't forget something. Like, how many times did you get to the end of the line and figure out you forgot to talk about the paperwork process? Or you forgot to quantify the pain. You talked about the pain, but you didn't quantify the pain. And then you think you've got a lot of deals in your pipeline, but fundamentally, they're not healthy deals. So whereas the opportunity stages let you know kind of where you are, the MEDDPICC helps you understand how healthy things are in that process. All right, I think we're out of time for questions, but we were going to do them. Or maybe we do have time for questions. Do we do? Okay, we do have time for questions. Sorry, go ahead, right here, first one.
I think you said kill the deal, you can come back later. What does that look like for the salesperson who's making the decision, and how does it show up in the database, and what's the communication with the customer or the prospect?
Yeah, so part of it is that when you've got an opportunity in the engagement stage, for me that means you've got a 40% chance of winning this deal. If you haven't heard from the customer in 2 weeks, you do not have a 40% chance of winning that deal. So the sales rep needs to go mark it as closed lost. They can still try to sell. They can still talk to this customer. They can still do outreach to the customer. But I don't want it in my sales forecast as a sales leader. So I want this thing gone and marked as closed lost. Now, if they get some engagement, the person's like, sorry, I went on vacation for a week. I'm back. We're super interested. Great, move it back into the engagement stage. So that's the database part of it. And there does need to be some communication in some ways to the manager that says, hey, I've killed this thing in following our guidance and our rules here around how we handle stages, but I'm still working it, which is fine. I just don't want it in my forecast if it's not a real deal. Okay, you go next because you gave me great eye contact and lots of head nodding. You're a winner.
Hey, thanks again. In your opinion, I love, by the way, thank you. I love all the verifiable outcomes. In your opinion, in your experience, do you think that the best salespeople, are they fudging positively on the sort of 0, 1, 2, or are they sort of more pessimistic and say, I really don't know what it is? Or are they accurate?
Yeah, the better salespeople, I would say, are skeptical but accurate. It is, I mean, one of the worst things about salespeople is that we're like super optimistic and we just, you know, John's your guy. It's like, great, I'm in love with John now. He's gonna help me get this deal done. And it turns out John is a fan who has no power and no authority, right? So I would say there's a degree of skepticism that they're always bringing, but with a higher degree of accuracy. So I would lean more on the skeptic side.
Sorry, they gave me the mic.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. I
You're
have too many things in my hand. How do you test a champion?
Yeah, so it's an interesting thing, you know. So part of it is you need to be looking at kind of their level in the org chart, and if you understand the decision making and the buying process, you should have some sense of how important they are in things. If you're dealing with a sales leader, they get it, right? So you can just kind of ask them, like, hey, like, will you be my champion? That's a harder one to do, right? So one of the ideas that's thrown in there is when you're talking about the competitors, if they'll talk to you about who the competitors are. I think that a good question to ask any champion is, hey, based on what you know about 15.5 so far, are we the recommended vendor? And if they say, yes, you're the recommended vendor, it's like, okay, great. What do you plan to do about that now? And if they don't plan to do a whole lot about it, they're not a champion for you. And if you're not the recommended vendor, you still have some work you need to do to convert this person who could be a champion into somebody who can actually do something for you.
Provide a little background on 15.5, how many salespeople are on the team, and relate that back to staging of scaling your sales team, how much an early stage sales team up to the point that you can effectively.
Yeah.
So you probably can't do that right out the gates, right? That's something you have to pay SDR, customer success people in place.
Yeah, I mean, so part of the thing on MEDDPICC, right, is that you shouldn't be doing it on all your deals. Like if you've got a $4,000 deal, don't waste your time on MEDDPICC, right? You've got a $40,000 deal, like you better be covering all your bases with something like MEDDPICC. I'll give you a short answer to this question, but I'm happy to chat with you offline later about it because it's a pretty in-depth question that you're asking. This process of MEDDPICC is not about helping you to scale a team. It's about just winning deals. And so I don't care how many sellers you have. If you've got somebody who's reasonably competent and you've got an important deal, they should be following MEDDPICC. This is not a complicated process, right? It's a checklist that they should just be thorough about if they care about this individual deal. And so where it becomes harder and where I don't think you can get in these places where you're literally scoring this stuff up and so I can say, I've got 10 sales reps and I've got 40 deals and all these, and I've got all of them scored on MEDDPICC, and so overall my deal health is a 13. Right? It's like, well, that doesn't mean anything when you've got a small team. So like, don't even waste your time on that stuff. But as things grow and they do get bigger, you can start to look at the pipeline health in a more global way based on the numbers that you're getting in. But remember, it's a max of 16 and a low of 0. So, and the one thing that's a little bit tough for me on MEDDPICC is that it doesn't correlate to stages. Like if you're in the discovery stage, you're not going to be at a 16. You might be like a 5, and maybe a 5 is really good, given how early stage that deal is. So that's one of the things also that you need to be sensitive to as things are scaling.
Okay.
I'm loud.
Great presentation, by the way. So my question is, would you recommend like going after like a fan first or a champion first as your entry point into a company? Because sometimes it's helpful to get the fans buy-in, so you can understand more about the customer, understand more about the champion, but then they could also kill it, right? So
Yeah.
What plays in your transition?
So I'm a big fan, when you're saying what do I do first, I'm a fan of getting the champion first. The problem with fans is that you can waste so much time with these people. They love you, right? And they'll tell you all the information, but they don't do anything or they can't do anything or they just don't have enough respect and power inside of the organization. And so they're really valuable people to have involved in your deal so you can get a lot of helpful information. And one of the things is like, we didn't talk about this at all today, but like, do not get single threaded in a deal. If you have a demo and 4 people show up to your demo and all you do is maintain the relationship with your main point of contact and you ignore the other 3 people, you're just shooting yourself in the foot. Like, that is the dumbest thing to do. Go back to all 4 people immediately after the demo with individual messages to each of them that says, what'd you think? What are your concerns about 15.5? What'd you like? So if you want to build relationships with fans, but the problem is that we so often forget that they're a fan and we think they're a champion. And we delude ourselves and we get optimistic around the wrong stuff. So that's the biggest risk in that. But I'm always a believer that you call high and good things happen, because if a champion with power turns to the person that you don't know yet as a fan and says, hey, go work on this and figure it out, that person just should do what they were told, right? But if you tell the fan to go like, hey, go call your boss, the boss is like, okay, I got stuff to do. I'm not listening to you. So
Let's give Brad a round of applause. Brad, great work. Really impressive.